Diego Cordovez.
Adam Schoenfeld.
Welcome to The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. We had Justin Young with us last week, talking about his various tournament triumphs and his group of successful poker friends that he is supported by and works with, and his life before poker. So we're going to wrap things up with him today, and if you missed part one, it's on Card Player TV. The resume for almost every kind of up-and-coming young star player now is that they start playing in college, they had a decision to make, but they're making so much money they just kind of go right into poker playing. But in our research we came across the fact that you actually were an actual mechanical engineer for a while in the real world.
For about just under 3 years, yeah.
Well, that's something.
Yeah, I mean, after about a year of playing, I kind of knew I wanted to play professionally. So, I don't know. It's kind of a huge jump to give up a nice job with cushy benefits and all that stuff for something that's very, very uncertain.
Or any benefits for something,
yeah.
Right.
But I made a list that's probably like 30 things long, and as soon as I checked off the last one, I went and put my, I think it was a 2-month resignation at work, and everyone knew I was kind of working towards that goal eventually. But
what about your family or girlfriend and such? What were their feelings?
It was a little mixed. My girlfriend, now current wife, was absolutely like all about it. She supported me like the entire time.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, never a doubt. She thought it was fantastic. I was following my dream, and I'd have fun for the rest of my life.
She had faith in you, which is great.
My dad was pretty much the same way. My mom was a little hesitant, but that's kind of. I mean, we all grew up playing games, but like I think she just had a different view of it. Is all.
That's a mother's job.
Which is completely fine, and she's come around and she supports me, and. Surprisingly enough, my girlfriend's parents were, at least to me anyway, openly like supportive as well. They and her dad's an engineer as well, so like I was actually expecting some grief for that, but they supported me the whole time as well.
He was probably thinking, thank God you're not going to spend 30 years doing this like I have.
Yeah, but an engineer would understand that there's a math basis to what you're doing, so it's not like, because I think that might lead to even a little more understanding of your pursuit.
I think he understood the skill part of the game, which was very helpful, but still, I'm sure there's a large part of him that was concerned for the security aspect.
Yeah, he probably also understands variance. So
there's two aspects to it. One obviously is, can you make a living at it? Will you be successful? And maybe they had faith in that. The second is that it's a whole different lifestyle and world. So even if people think you can be successful financially, they think he'll move to Las Vegas and then he'll just be hanging around
spewing
with the Chatterettes and living, a whole different lifestyle, and that scares some people, and in some cases it's actually accurate that people do fall into a lot of the traps. I think in most cases,
unfortunately. I mean, given the lifestyle where it's very addicting personalities are attracted to poker in the first place, and then to know that you need to be in Vegas or at least around a gambling community for a large part of it, there are so many pitfalls that come along with loose money and like that kind of personality. And I'm not saying I'm above it all or anything like that, but it's helped out a lot that I had the working like past, and I had a long-term girlfriend, now wife, and even more so now, like a steady group of friends that kind of have the same ideals as me as well, that don't go out and need to club on every Friday, Saturday night.
I really think that guys and women who have had real jobs and then pursue poker do have a life edge over those who've never experienced what it's like to work, and some of them who've never read a book.
It may or may
Any
not
kind
be
of
a
book. I'm
poker
talking about poker book.
But in terms of falling into the many traps that exist, definitely you're much less likely to end up in those difficulties.
So right around this time, well, a little in December of 2008, at least to my mind, you burst onto, I hadn't really known much about you before then, but you knocked off the 5K at the Bellagio. Is that right?
I'd won a prelim right before that, I believe. Yeah.
And then you finished second in the 15K.
Yeah.
Was
WPT.
That was a good year.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a good week.
Yeah,
it was really good. Like I said, I was just getting into tournaments at that point in time, mainly just playing like lower buy-in events, and got backed by some of my buddies for the 15K at the time for the Bellagio. Because up to that point, I think I had played maybe 4 or 5 10Ks, and they were all either main events or I satellited into them.
Right.
But
15K is a lot of real life money.
I mean, it really was, and like for my bankroll at the time, it really wasn't like. It was a decent chunk when I would be breaking my rule if I bought it myself, and like my bankroll rules.
when the mode result is 0, which it is
Yeah.
in any big buy-in tournament,
For anybody.
15K, yeah, that's a significant investment.
It really was, and like I felt like I was playing well, and I never asked anyone to back me ever, and I didn't really know how to go about it, but I asked like my friends now, like Shannon and Eric and like them, and without hesitation, and some of my cash game buddies, the 10, 20, and 25, 50 guys that play at the Bellagio, and without hesitation, I had all I wanted sold. It was within probably 2 hours. So this was literally the night before the tournament started, and I had the money I needed, and got, I don't know, very fortunate, I guess.
At that point, you figured these are easy. Every month or two, I'm gonna win a couple or runner up at worst.
It was good and bad at the same time. Like I feel in some of the bigger buy-in events, like the deep stack kind of plays more into my strength, so I feel a little more comfortable, especially in the early parts of the tournaments. But yeah, but this year, like I've had a drought in like big buy-in events. I haven't really done anything this year, and I can finally see how quick it can pile up the negative numbers.
That's the ultimate invariance where the buy-ins are big, make a big score, but then you can go a long time without one, as even the most successful players have gone.
Right. And I remind my friends and family all the time of this. If like, they want me to buy, like I still drive the same car I had in college, and they just, why don't you buy this, why don't you buy that? I'm like, well, things can happen, and like I'd hate to get back to the point where I can't afford to like buy into an event if I want to.
Right.
I remember
Adam has a used Bentley for sale along those lines.
I remember when, not to the extent that you did, but I had a couple of scores in, World Poker Tours, and it seemed like it was so easy. And then I remember very specifically, Eric Seidel just mentioned to me offhand that he had like an 0 for 18 month, and I was like, Eric Seidel had 0 for 18 month. And that was sort of a sobering realization that it's good not to have the Bentley immediately.
Yeah. I'd like to be able to reward myself eventually for it, but I don't know. I'm probably just going to wait till my car breaks down and just go get a new one.
If you do get the Bentley Lavender, because of Keith Moon and the Who, that's what he had. He later drove it into his own pond. I also recommend that for you.
I'll have to get a pond, though.
Yeah, right.
I like that you mentioned the, kind of the higher stakes, not Ultra Bobby's Room, but the higher stakes cash games at Bellagio, because kind of the typical path is either purely in tournaments, which can mean something or not, or online, kind of the online grind. And this is more a traditional kind of old school approach, which is playing in the live games, pretty big cash games, because you can have some big ups and downs. And so is that still part of your program, or?
Yeah, I really like playing cash games. Tournaments are very addicting, especially when you're running good and playing well at the same time. But they are just on the opposite end of the spectrum. They can be very, very like crushing, and they can get you on a spiraling like just downfall, which can be really hurtful for your overall game in general. So like the 0 for 18 streak happens all the time, and like when it happens, like you just don't feel like doing anything, and you have to kind of reevaluate everything you do. Cash games is kind of like a norm. Like I can have good days, I can have bad days, but like I can still go back and see like what I did wrong, what I did right, and like kind of analyze it productively, as opposed to just saying I'm 0 for 18. I must be doing something awful.
We talk to a lot of primarily online players who lament the fact that the online cash games have gotten much more challenging, much more difficult, much more scarce. What about the live No Limit? Is that still, how do you compare to games 2 years ago, 4 years ago? Are they still lucrative? Is it a different cast of characters?
I wouldn't say to the extent it was online, because I was playing the 25-50 games online and doing well, and then
they dried up.
I mean, I can't remember the exact moment, but it just feels like it was like that. Like, the games just dried up, and like I was beating my head against the wall trying to beat these other 8 guys who were very good players, and like I had my first losing year just due to that, and
the same 8 guys were all top players.
That
like
game
yourself.
both became scarcer and only great players.
Right.
25-50 specifically.
Yeah, it was incredibly tough, and like I had so much success before that. Like I figured, I was just having a bad week or something, like a bad month, bad 6 months, and
but
like
something
it turned into a year.
fundamentally had changed in the lineups.
It took me too long to realize that. I think it's too much hubris, but the cash games, not to the extent the live cash games, but you could see it quite a bit. I remember, 3-4 years ago, come to Bellagio, not to mention the huge like tournament fields, but like 10-20s like throughout the room, 2-3 like 25-50s, like 100-200s going on, and now 1 10-20 a day, which is fine. and 2550 goes maybe once a week, you know, if that.
It's a big difference.
Yeah, and like same thing though. You get in, and you play. Like usually there's 1 or 2 marks, and outside of that, like it's the friends you've played with for the last 4 years who
Correct.
are tough players. You may be able to beat them some days. They can beat you some days, but it's
And they know your game, and you
Right,
know their game.
right.
So you get do you get drop-ins who just come in and don't realize what they're falling into?
yeah, like every once in a while, especially on New Year's, this is one of the best times to play cash games in Las Vegas, and I don't think enough people know that and come here. You see a steady handful of people from LA that drive down, but outside of that, it's a lot of well-to-do tourists that come here for New Year's, and they get bored of blackjack, get bored of dice or whatever, and they come in and literally drop hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table.
And bring the
Yeah.
same approach that they brought to
Right.
the craps table to the poker table.
Like I showed up New Year's Day, little hungover, but either way, I showed up because I knew the games would be good, and there was a guy who had lost $200K at 2550, which is a lot of money for anyone, obviously.
Incredible, right?
And he just bought in for $100K more, and the list, of course, is like 20 deep, and there's no chance of me getting on there before this guy passed out because he was playing all night. But you know, I mean, like guys like that do drop in, especially around big sporting events or like
dream.
big holidays
Yeah.
or something like that.
Justin, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Justin.
I've no doubt you'll experience continued success. You have a good level-headed approach, but we appreciate you coming down. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Thanks for joining us on The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. Write to us at cardplayer.com.